The champagne tasted like betrayal, but I didn't know that yet. I stood at the edge of the corporate ballroom, watching my wife Jennifer laugh at something my boss Greg Patterson had whispered in her ear. The annual company party was in full swing. 300 employees celebrating another profitable year while the executives patted themselves on the back and handed out meaningless awards. I'm Sam Mitchell, 38 years old, senior IT specialist for Meridian Financial. I fix computers, manage servers, and apparently I'm completely oblivious to my own life falling apart. Greg had been circling Jennifer like a shark for months. Every company event, every office gathering, every damn birthday party in the break room. There he was, leaning too close, touching her arm, making her laugh with jokes that weren't that funny. At first, I tried handling it the right way. I pulled him aside after the summer barbecue. "Greg, I need you to back off from my wife," I said, keeping my voice professional. "The way you interact with her makes me uncomfortable." He laughed, actually laughed. "Sam, buddy, you're being paranoid. I'm just being friendly. Jennifer's a lovely woman, and I enjoy talking to her. Nothing wrong with that, right?" But it didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. At the Halloween party, he complimented her costume, a black cat outfit that hugged her curves, for 10 straight minutes. At the Christmas dinner, he insisted she sit next to him, claiming it was random seating. When I objected, Jennifer herself told me to stop being jealous. "He's just being nice, Sam. You're embarrassing yourself," she said, her green eyes flashing with annoyance. That's when I started paying attention to details I'd been ignoring. How Jennifer always seemed to know about company gossip before I did. How she'd gotten suddenly interested in working late on projects that didn't require her presence. How she'd started dressing differently, sexier, for work events. I began asking around, carefully, quietly. My colleague Dave from accounting hesitated when I brought up Greg's behavior. "Look, Sam, I don't want to start drama, but..." He glanced around the break room, making sure we were alone. "Greg talks about Jennifer a lot, like a lot. He calls her amazing and perfect. Last week, he spent 20 minutes describing her laugh to the guys in management. My stomach dropped. What else?" Dave shifted uncomfortably. "There's talk about them spending time together. Company trips where she wasn't officially supposed to go. Late nights after events. People are starting to notice." That night, I confronted Jennifer directly. We were in our suburban kitchen, the same one where we'd shared coffee every morning for 12 years of marriage. "Are you having an affair with Greg?" I asked, my heart pounding. She didn't deny it fast enough. That half-second of hesitation told me everything. "Don't be ridiculous, Sam. He's my boss's boss. We work together. That's it." But her voice lacked conviction, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. Now, watching them together at this party, I could see the truth written in their body language. The way she tilted her head when he spoke, the way his hand lingered on her lower back, the way they moved together like they'd done this dance 100 times before. I was nursing my second whiskey when Greg approached me. He had that smug smile he wore when he'd closed a big deal or gotten away with something. His expensive suit was perfectly tailored, his silver hair perfectly styled. Everything about Greg Patterson screamed success and entitlement. "Sam, great party, isn't it?" He clapped me on the shoulder like we were old friends. "It's something," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. He glanced around, then leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Listen, I'm glad you and Jennifer broke up. Now we don't have to hide our relationship anymore. It was getting complicated, you know? Sneaking around, making excuses. But now that you two are done, we can be open about it." The whiskey glass nearly slipped from my hand. "Broke up?" "Yeah. She told me you guys separated last month. Signed the papers and everything. She said you were both ready to move on." His grin widened. "I have to say, Sam, she's incredible. You're a lucky man to have had her as long as you did." The room seemed to tilt sideways. Jennifer had told him we were separated, divorced. I was still sleeping in our bed, still paying our mortgage, still believing we were working through our problems. Apparently, in her version of reality, our marriage had already ended. For a moment, I just stared at him. The audacity was breathtaking. Then something clicked into place, a cold, calculating clarity I'd never felt before. I smiled back at him. "You know what, Greg? I'm glad too." His eyebrows raised slightly. "Really?" "Absolutely. Because if I'm truly free now, then I can finally stop holding back around Monica." The color drained from his face. Monica Patterson was his wife of 15 years, a stunning brunette with sharp intelligence and the kind of elegance that came from old money. "What do you mean?" His voice had lost its jovial tone. "Well, if you're proudly dating my wife, then I suppose it's only fair that I date yours. Monica's beautiful enough to be a very worthy replacement. and she's always been so friendly to me at these events. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Greg's jaw tightened. You stay away from my wife, Sam. Why? According to you, I'm single now. And Monica, well, she mentioned at the last board meeting how much she enjoys our conversations about literature. Did you know she's read every Stephen King novel? We have so much in common. It was a lie, but Greg didn't know that. I could see the wheels turning in his head. The same paranoia and jealousy he'd been inflicting on me for months suddenly turned back on him. This conversation is over, he said, his face flushed. Is it? Because I think it's just getting started. I walked away, leaving him standing there with his mouth hanging open. Across the room, I caught Jennifer watching us, her expression puzzled. She had no idea what storm was about to hit. The next morning, I woke up alone. Jennifer had left early for a client meeting, the same excuse she'd been using for weeks. I lay in our king-size bed, staring at the ceiling, processing everything Greg had told me. My wife had created an entirely fictional narrative about our marriage being over. She'd been living a double life so elaborate that she'd convinced her lover we were already divorced. The betrayal went deeper than just an affair. She'd erased me from her story entirely. I called in sick to work and spent the day thinking. By evening, I had a plan. If Jennifer wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules. But first, I needed allies, and I knew exactly where to start. Monica Patterson lived in a world I'd only glimpsed at company events. Their house was a sprawling colonial in the most expensive neighborhood in town, complete with a circular driveway and professionally maintained gardens. I'd been there once for a board member barbecue, feeling completely out of place among the lawyers and executives. I parked across the street and waited. At 3:47 p.m., Monica's silver Mercedes pulled into the driveway. She stepped out wearing yoga clothes that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, but she moved with the confidence of someone who'd earned her place in the world. I waited 10 minutes, then rang her doorbell. Sam? She looked genuinely surprised. What are you doing here? Monica Patterson was 42 years old, with dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders and brown eyes that missed nothing. She had the kind of beauty that improved with age, sophisticated, refined, intimidating. I need to talk to you about Greg, I said. Her expression shifted, becoming guarded. What about him? Can I come in? This isn't a conversation for the front porch. She hesitated, then stepped aside. The interior of their house was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive furniture, original artwork, everything perfectly coordinated. We sat in her living room, which was bigger than my entire first floor. Monica, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Do you know about Greg and Jennifer? She was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. What exactly are you asking me, Sam? I'm asking if you know your husband is having an affair with my wife. Another pause. Then she sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. How long have you known? I suspected for months. I confirmed it last night at the party. He told me he was glad Jennifer and I had broken up so they could stop hiding their relationship. Problem is, I had no idea we were broken up. Monica's eyes widened. She told him you were separated. Divorced, apparently. Signed papers and everything. Complete fiction, but Greg believed it. She stood up abruptly and walked to the window, her back to me. That bastard. That lying, cheating bastard. How long have you known? 6 months. Maybe longer. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the anger underneath. Late nights, mysterious phone calls, new cologne, all the classic signs. I hired a private investigator 3 months ago. She walked to an elegant desk in the corner and pulled out a manila folder. David Chen, licensed private investigator. Very thorough, very discreet. Would you like to see what $15,000 of surveillance looks like? The photographs were damning. Greg and Jennifer at restaurants I couldn't afford. Greg and Jennifer entering a hotel downtown. Greg and Jennifer in his car in a secluded parking lot. The timestamps showed a pattern going back 7 months. Jesus, I whispered. There's more. Monica pulled out bank statements. Greg's been using our joint account to pay for their dates, expensive dinners, weekend getaways, jewelry. He bought her a tennis bracelet last month that cost more than most people make in 6 months. I stared at the evidence, feeling sick. Why haven't you confronted him? Because I'm not ready yet. Her voice had taken on a steely quality. Greg thinks he's smarter than everyone else. He thinks he can manipulate people in situations to get what he wants. But he's about to learn that I'm not some helpless housewife he can discard. She sat back down, leaning forward with intense focus. You said you wanted to talk about Greg. What did you have in mind? Honestly, I'm not sure yet, but I know I'm tired of being the fool in this situation. Greg's been making a mockery of me for months, and Jennifer's been helping him do it. Monica nodded slowly. What if I told you there was a way to turn the tables? To make them both pay for what they've done? I'd say I'm listening. She smiled, and for the first time since I'd arrived, she looked genuinely happy. Greg has a weakness, Sam. He's arrogant. He thinks he's untouchable because of his position at the company. But he's also paranoid about his reputation and his standing in the community. Okay. What if we gave him something real to be paranoid about? Over the next 2 hours, Monica outlined a plan that was both elegant and ruthless. She'd been thinking about this for months, waiting for the right opportunity. My arrival had provided the missing piece. The annual shareholders meeting is in 3 weeks, she explained. Greg will be giving the quarterly presentation to the board and major investors. It's the biggest event of his professional year. What does that have to do with anything? Everything, because that's when we're going to destroy him. As she detailed her strategy, I realized that Monica Patterson was far more dangerous than her husband had ever imagined. She'd been playing chess while he was playing checkers, and she was about to achieve checkmate. There's just one thing I need from you, Sam. What's that? I need you to make Greg believe that you and I are having an affair. The irony was perfect. We were going to use his own paranoia and jealousy against him, the same weapons he'd been using to torment me for months. How do we do that? Monica's smile was predatory. Leave that to me, but I hope you're ready to play the role of your life, because once we start this, there's no going back. I thought about Jennifer's lies, about Greg's smug confession at the party, about months of humiliation and betrayal. I'm ready. The plan started small, with carefully orchestrated coincidences. Monica and I began appearing at the same places Greg and Jennifer frequented, the coffee shop downtown where they met for their morning trysts, the upscale restaurant where Greg had taken Jennifer for her birthday, a date I'd known nothing about, the art gallery where they'd spend a romantic afternoon while I was at home fixing our broken dishwasher. We were careful never to appear together in an obvious way. Instead, we'd arrive separately, notice each other, and strike up conversations that looked natural but were designed to be seen. Monica was a master at this game, positioning us where Greg's network of colleagues and friends would spot us and inevitably report back to him. The key, Monica explained over lunch at Cafe Milano, is to let him draw his own conclusions. We don't want to be too obvious. We want him to connect the dots himself, because that will make him more paranoid and more likely to make mistakes. She was right. Within a week, I could see the effect our strategy was having. Greg started watching me differently at work, his friendly facade cracking to reveal suspicion and anger. He began asking seemingly casual questions about my personal life, fishing for information about how I was handling the separation. So, Sam, how are you adjusting to being single again? He asked one morning, cornering me by the coffee machine. It's been an adjustment, I replied carefully, but I'm discovering there are benefits to being available again. His eyes narrowed. Benefits? Well, you know how it is. When you're married, you don't really notice other women. But now, I shrugged, letting the implication hang in the air. Have you been dating? The question was too eager, too interested. I smiled. I'm exploring my options. That afternoon, Monica texted me. Greg called, very interested in my day. Asked specifically if I'd been downtown lately. It's working. Phase 2 involved social media. Monica was active on Instagram and Facebook, posting carefully curated glimpses of her life. She began including subtle references to interesting conversations with unexpected people and discovering new perspectives. Nothing obvious, but enough to plant seeds of doubt in anyone paying attention. I, meanwhile, started commenting on her posts, thoughtful responses to her book recommendations, appreciative remarks about her photography, the kind of interactions that could be innocent but might suggest something more to a suspicious mind. The breakthrough came during week 3, at the monthly department meeting. Greg was presenting quarterly numbers when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed. His confident presentation faltered, and he stumbled over numbers he'd delivered flawlessly dozens of times before. Later, I learned why. One of his golf buddies had sent him a photo taken at the downtown farmers market, Monica and me examining produce at the same stand, laughing at something she'd said. Completely innocent, but the timing was perfect. We'd both been there by coincidence, and the photographer had captured a moment that looked intimate. He's losing it, Monica told me that evening. We were meeting at her house again, planning the next phase of our campaign. He accused me of having an affair this morning. What did you tell him? I told him he was being paranoid and that maybe he was projecting his own behavior onto me. She smiled. Then I asked him if there was something he wanted to confess. How did he react? He backed down immediately, started apologizing and saying he was just stressed about work, but I could see it in his eyes. He knows he's trapped. The beauty of our plan was its subtlety. We weren't actually doing anything wrong. We were two people whose spouses were having an affair, supporting each other through a difficult time. If our friendship happened to make Greg uncomfortable, well, that was his problem. But the psychological pressure was mounting. Greg started making mistakes at work, missed deadlines, forgotten meetings, reports with obvious errors. His usually perfect appearance became disheveled. He looked tired, stressed, paranoid. "You're destroying him," I observed during one of our strategy sessions. "We're destroying him," Monica corrected, "and we're just getting started." The next phase required more direct action. Monica had discovered something in her investigation that would change everything. Greg wasn't just cheating on his wife and manipulating his employees. He was also embezzling money from the company. "It's sophisticated," she explained, showing me documents she'd photographed from his home office. "He's been skimming from client accounts, small amounts that wouldn't be noticed individually. But over the past 2 years, he's stolen nearly $200,000. Holy shit. He's been using the money to finance his lifestyle upgrade. The expensive dinners, the weekend getaways, the jewelry for Jennifer. He's been stealing from the company to pay for his affair." This changed everything. What had started as a campaign of psychological warfare had uncovered actual criminal behavior. "What do we do with this information?" Monica's smile was cold. "We use it to end him, completely." The shareholders' meeting was held in the grand ballroom of the Marriott downtown, the same venue where the company party had taken place a month earlier. 300 people filled the room: investors, board members, senior management, and key employees. Greg stood at the podium in his best suit, projecting confidence and competence as he delivered his quarterly presentation. He had no idea his world was about to collapse. Monica and I sat at separate tables, maintaining our carefully constructed distance, but I could see the tension in Greg's shoulders when he spotted us both in the audience. His presentation was flawless. He'd clearly practiced extensively, but I caught him glancing in our direction more than once. Jennifer was there too, sitting with the other HR managers, looking proud of her secret lover's performance. She dressed carefully for the occasion, wearing a navy blue dress that I now realized Greg had probably bought for her. The tennis bracelet Monica had mentioned sparkled on her wrist. The presentation ended to polite applause. Greg fielded a few questions from the board, his confidence returning as he settled into familiar territory. He was good at his job. I had to give him that. If he hadn't been a lying, cheating embezzler, he might have had a successful career. "Now," announced Board Chairman Robert Walsh, "we'll move to new business." This was the moment Monica and I had been waiting for. Walsh continued, "The board has recently become aware of some financial irregularities that require investigation. We've brought in an independent auditing firm to review our accounts." Greg's face went pale. I saw him glance toward the exit, calculating distances. "The preliminary findings suggest that someone with access to client accounts has been systematically diverting funds for personal use. The total amount stolen appears to be approximately $200,000 over a 24-month period." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Jennifer looked confused, not understanding why Greg suddenly appeared to be having trouble breathing. Walsh looked directly at Greg. "Mr. Patterson, as head of client services, you would have had access to these accounts. Do you have any insight into how this theft might have occurred?" Greg stood frozen at the podium, his mouth opening and closing without sound. The confident executive had vanished, replaced by a trapped animal looking for escape routes. "Furthermore," Walsh continued, "we've received evidence that the stolen funds were used to finance an extramarital affair, including expensive dinners, weekend getaways, and jewelry purchases. This evidence includes bank statements, credit card records, and photographic documentation of the affair itself." Now Jennifer understood. She was staring at Greg with growing horror as she realized her affair partner was not only married, but also a criminal who'd been using stolen money to finance their relationship. "Mr. Patterson," Walsh's voice cut through the silence like a blade, "you're terminated immediately. Security will escort you from the building. The board is also referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution." Greg finally found his voice. "You can't do this. I've given 15 years to this company. This is all a misunderstanding." "The evidence is quite clear, Mr. Patterson. Your employment is terminated, and your access to company resources is revoked immediately." 2 security guards appeared at the sides of the room, moving toward the podium. Greg looked around desperately, his eyes finding mine in the audience. For a moment, our gazes locked, and I saw him realize that this wasn't a coincidence. "This is your doing," he said, pointing directly at me. You and my wife cooked this up together." The accusation hung in the air, and 300 people turned to look at me. I stood up slowly, letting the moment build. "Greg," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room, "the only thing Monica and I cooked up was the truth. Everything else, the theft, the lies, the affair, that was all you." Jennifer was crying now, understanding that her carefully constructed fantasy was collapsing around her. The other employees were staring at her, putting together the pieces of the affair that had been an open secret for months. "You destroyed your own life," I continued. "Monica and I just made sure everyone else knew about it." The security guards reached Greg, taking him by the arms. He didn't resist, but he kept staring at me with naked hatred. "This isn't over, Sam." "Yes, it is." As they escorted him from the room, Walsh addressed the audience again. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. The board takes financial irregularities very seriously, and we will continue to cooperate fully with law enforcement." The meeting dissolved into chaos as people processed what they'd witnessed. I made my way through the crowd toward the exit, accepting handshakes and congratulations from colleagues who'd never liked Greg's arrogant management style. Jennifer intercepted me in the lobby, her makeup streaked with tears. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded. "I didn't do anything to you, Jennifer. You did this to yourself when you decided to have an affair and then lie about our marriage being over. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You wanted Greg more than you wanted our marriage, so you created a fiction that let you have him without feeling guilty about it. But you forgot one important detail." "What?" "Greg was using stolen money to pay for your relationship. Every dinner, every gift, every romantic weekend, it was all bought with money he embezzled from the company. Congratulations, Jennifer. You're an accessory to theft." Her face went white. "I didn't know. Maybe not. But you knew he was married, and you knew you were married, and you decided to pursue the affair anyway. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences." I walked away, leaving her standing in the lobby of the hotel where our marriage had effectively ended a month earlier. 6 months later, I sat in my lawyer's office signing the final divorce papers. Jennifer had moved out 3 days after the shareholders meeting, taking only her clothes and personal belongings. She'd found a new job in another city, desperate to escape the scandal that had destroyed her reputation in our hometown. Greg had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for embezzlement. His lawyer had tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence Monica had gathered was too comprehensive to dispute. He'd lost his house, his car, and his freedom. Monica had filed for divorce the day after his arrest, and her lawyer had ensured she kept everything of value. "That's the last signature," my lawyer said, closing the folder. "You're officially divorced." How do I feel? I asked myself, but the answer surprised me. I felt relieved. Not happy exactly, but free in a way I hadn't experienced in years. My phone buzzed with a text from Monica. "Dinner tonight? I have news." We'd continued our friendship after the shareholders meeting, bonding over the shared experience of betrayal and revenge. She was different than I'd expected. Funnier, more down to earth, less concerned with appearances than she'd seemed during her marriage to Greg. I met her at a small Italian restaurant downtown, far from the upscale places where she'd once dined with her embezzling husband. She looked relaxed and genuinely happy for the first time since I'd known her. "The news?" I asked after we'd ordered wine. "Greg's appeal was denied. He'll serve the full 3 years." "Good." Also, I got a call from the district attorney's office. They want to use our case as an example in their new white-collar crime initiative. Apparently, our method of gathering evidence was so thorough that it's become a model for other investigations. I laughed. "We're famous." "Infamous, maybe." She raised her glass. "To justice served?" "To justice served." As we drank, I reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, I'd been a naive husband who trusted his wife and respected his boss. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but it had also revealed strength I hadn't known I possessed. "Do you ever regret it?" Monica asked, as if reading my thoughts. "Which part?" "Any of it. The investigation, the confrontation, the public humiliation." I considered the question seriously. Greg was in prison, his career destroyed, his reputation ruined. Jennifer had lost her job, her marriage, and her standing in the community. Some people might call our revenge excessive. "No," I said finally. They made their choices. They chose to lie, to cheat, to steal. We just made sure they faced the consequences. Even if those consequences were more severe than they expected. Especially then. They thought they were smarter than everyone else. They thought they could manipulate people in situations without any accountability. They were wrong, Monica nodded. Greg called me last week from prison. What did he want? To apologize, to beg for forgiveness, to ask me to wait for him. What did you tell him? Her smile was cold and satisfied. I told him that some mistakes can't be forgiven. I told him that he'd destroyed our marriage the moment he decided Jennifer was more important than our vows. And I told him that I'd moved on. Have you? Moved on? She looked at me across the table, her brown eyes serious. I'm working on it. It's easier some days than others. We finished dinner and walked out into the cool evening air. The city looked different to me now. Brighter, full of possibilities I hadn't noticed during my marriage. I was 40 years old, starting over, but for the first time in months, that felt like an opportunity rather than a tragedy. Sam, Monica said as we reached our cars, I want you to know something. What's that? When we started this plan, I was motivated entirely by revenge. I wanted to hurt Greg the way he'd hurt me. But somewhere along the way, it became about more than that. What do you mean? It became about proving that actions have consequences, that people can't just manipulate and betray others without eventually facing justice. We didn't just destroy Greg and Jennifer. We sent a message. I understood what she meant. Our story had become office legend, a cautionary tale about the dangers of workplace affairs and financial fraud. People were more careful now, more aware that their actions might have witnesses and consequences they hadn't considered. We did good work, I agreed. Yes, we did. As I drove home to my empty house, I thought about the future. The divorce was final. The revenge was complete, and justice had been served. Greg would spend the next 3 years in prison, thinking about the choices that had led him there. Jennifer was starting over in a new city, hopefully having learned something about the cost of betrayal. And me? I was free. Free from a marriage built on lies, free from a job where I'd been disrespected and manipulated, free to build whatever life I wanted. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. The caller ID showed Monica's name. I forgot to tell you, she said when I answered. I got a job offer today. Congratulations. Where? Seattle, corporate consulting. It's a fresh start, a chance to use everything I learned during this experience. When do you leave? Next month. There was a pause. Sam, would you consider coming with me? The question hung in the air between us. 6 months ago, it would have been impossible. We were both married, both trapped in relationships that were slowly destroying us. But now? As what? I asked. As whatever we want to be. Friends, partners, collaborators. We make a good team. I looked at my house, at the life I'd built with Jennifer, at the remnants of a marriage that had been over long before I'd realized it. Then I thought about Monica, intelligent, ruthless when necessary, loyal to those who earned it. Seattle's a long way from here, I said. That's the point. Clean slate, new beginning, no one who knows our story. What about your life here? Your friends, your family? What life? Greg destroyed most of my friendships when he started spreading lies about me to cover his own behavior. My family lives on the East Coast. There's nothing keeping me here except habit. I sat in my car, engine running, considering possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to imagine. I'll think about it, I said finally. That's all I can ask. After she hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time, processing everything that had happened. 6 months ago, I'd been a fool who trusted the wrong people. Tonight, I was a man who'd fought back and won. Greg Patterson had whispered his confession at a company party, thinking he was sharing good news with a defeated rival. Instead, he'd lit the fuse that would destroy his own life. Jennifer had created elaborate lies to justify her affair, thinking she could rewrite history to make herself the hero of her own story. Instead, she'd given us the ammunition we needed to expose the truth. They'd both underestimated the people they'd betrayed. They'd assumed we would accept their version of reality, that we would quietly disappear while they built their new life on the foundation of our humiliation. They were wrong. The next morning, I called my boss, Greg's replacement, and gave my 2 weeks' notice. Then I called Monica. Seattle sounds interesting, I told her. When do we leave? Her laughter was warm and genuine, full of possibilities neither of us had dared to imagine 6 months earlier. As soon as you're ready for the next chapter. I looked around my house one last time, at the pictures on the walls and the furniture we'd chosen together and the life I'd thought was permanent. Then I started packing. Greg Patterson had been right about one thing. I was glad he and Jennifer had broken up my marriage, because in destroying what I thought I wanted, they'd forced me to discover what I actually needed. Justice, truth, a partner who understood the value of loyalty, and a fresh start in a city where no one knew our story except us.